Hello once again to the Cataclysm. No one can dispute the evil in the world in modern times. The senseless killing in the streets without remorse. The crimes that are being committed in an all-time high. Not to mention the weirdness in the world. The unnatural things that's happening. If you were to go back in time and even mention some of these things that are going on, people would want to burn you at the stake. It's a horrible, horrible world that we're living in. But it's also a truth that's been taught throughout the Bible, that in the end times these things would happen. That we would wrestle not with flesh and blood, with spiritual principalities. So I'm going to show you a little taste of not only why the world has gotten so evil, but who is responsible for making it that way. So please join me tonight for another great episode, and I will see you there.
Would you like me to show them how the sign of the curse works?
The sign of the curse?
Completely different.
How does it go?
No, not at you people out there in the audience, but this is the difference.
Aim it toward Red China, would you?
This is the sign of the horns. A curse sign, the two fingers extended. This way, spread apart for sort of shotgun blast.
The other one?
The other one is the pox sign, that's three fingers extended.
A pox on you?
A pox on you. During the Middle Ages, this was...
Yeah.
In Ephesians chapter 6 verse 12 it says, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places."
Aleister Crowley, the man who called himself the Beast 666, black magician, drug fiend, sex addict, and traitor to the British people. In 1920, Aleister Crowley founded a commune in Sicily to practice the beliefs that he said would one day sweep away Christianity and free men from all restriction and repression. 3 years later, Mussolini deported Crowley and his followers from Sicily after reports of human and animal sacrifice and unimaginable sexual depravity caused an international scandal. The British press called Crowley the wickedest man in the world.
As we progress further through the video, I'd like you to pay special attention to the pattern that's being formed here. It seems to be with the celebrities, people who are successful, people who are rich, politicians, people in political power. And I think when it's all said and done, it'll be clear where the problem's coming from. In Matthew chapter 4 verses 8 through 10 it says, "Again the devil taketh him up into an exceeding high mountain, and showeth him all the kingdoms of the world, and the glory of them, and saith unto him, All these things I will give thee, if thou wilt fall down and worship me. Then Jesus said unto him, Get thee hence, Satan, for it is written, Thou shalt worship the Lord thy God, and him only shalt thou serve. So the devil has power to give people money, kingdoms, obviously, or he wouldn't have been able to offer it to Jesus. So there are those who will sell their souls for the things of this earth. And it says in Mark chapter 8 verse 36, For what shall it profit a man if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? Once you've given yourself over to the devil and he has rewarded you, then you have to live the rest of your life paying homage to him in worship and promoting his agenda.
It is one of the oldest practices of pagan idolatry on earth that can be traced to every continent and virtually every culture in the pre-Christian world. The oldest culture on earth, Babylon, worshipped the sun whose name was Shamash. He was usually depicted as a circle with 8 rays of the sun. Sir E.A. Wallace Budge, one of the greatest antiquities scholars of the 20th century, analyzed many of the Babylonian cylinder seals where Shamash is usually represented as rising between 2 mountains, for the Babylonians believed that each mountain had a door. When the sun rose in the east, it opened the eastern door in the morning. And when the sun set and disappeared in the west, it went through the western door in the evening. Babylon's younger sister culture, the Assyrians, worshipped the sun whose name was Asher, who was also their chief deity. He was usually depicted as a winged figure in a circle, sometimes with a bow and arrow in artwork when they were going to war. The Assyrians were heavily influenced by both the Babylonian and the Egyptian culture, where the Egyptian sun god like the Assyrians was also depicted as a circle with wings. Whether it was titled Ra or the Aten under the Pharaoh Akhenaten, it was the same pagan sun deity.
This symbol is one of the most important symbols in all symbology. It is the most prominent symbol on our $1 bill. It is one of the most viewed symbols on earth, and very few people understand what it really means. I'm going to break it completely down from top to bottom and go through each element and attempt to explain it as fully and as clearly as possible. This is the symbol of all the mystery traditions. Okay, very simply, it is the symbol of all occultism. Of course, it is Egyptian in its thematic representation and its symbolic representation. It is Egyptian, and there is a reason for that. We see the elements of the symbol being the words Anuit Coepus at the top. Then we have a pyramid with its capstone missing. The capstone is cut off, so it is an incomplete pyramid. Atop the pyramid, as a 2-dimensional slit in the sky, it could be seen, a 2-dimensional opening or a rift in the sky. From behind that, we see an eye, and that eye is bathed in light. The pyramid is comprised of 13 courses of brick, the bottom of which has a date inscribed on it in Roman numerals, 9 Roman numerals. There is then a sash with the words Novus Ordo Seclorum written on it at the bottom. So we have to understand each element. Each element is here not by accident, it is there by design, and the makers of this sigil, because that's what this is. This is a sigil, which is comprised of many symbols. Put nothing on it by accident, and everything has a meaning in this. So let's start to break down the symbols one at a time. Anuit Coepus is Latin. It means, Anuit means to favor or to look favorably upon. Coeptus is an enterprise, an undertaking, or a project, a work in progress, you could say. So Anuit Coeptus means he favors, could mean she favors, it favors, our project. He favors our work. He favors our work in progress. Okay? So, he favors our work is a good translation. Novus Ordo Seclorum is often hotly contested as to its meaning. Novus means new, Ordo means order or way, and seclorum is the debated word. So I go to a Latin dictionary and I look up the word saeclorum, S-A-E-C-O-L-O-R-U-M. This is because people say seclorum means of the ages. So I'm looking up the word saeclorum, and that means age, generation, people born at a time, race, present time or age, century. So if this phrase said the new order of the ages, we should see an A in between that S and E there. It would say Novus Ordo Saeclorum, but it says Seclorum. So clearly that's not the definition. Many people will say that that's what it means. It does not mean of the ages. Okay? The word seclorum is put into a Latin dictionary, and then you see it is a word modification, a truncation. CL is derived from CUL. So an internal CL might be rendered by CUL, thus giving us seculorum. And seculum, seculi, is a noun that means world, universe, secular, temporal, earthly, or worldly affairs, cares, or temptation. So, clearly, I think this can be solved and agreed upon once and for all, so we don't have to hear this incorrect, connotatively incorrect translation, the new order of the ages. This phrase clearly says New World Order. He favors our work, the New World Order. What is? Who favors the work? What is the work? And what is the New World Order? So, clearly, this is the being that favors the work. This project is the work that's being done. Okay, this is the incomplete project. This is the date that the project could be begun or finished, depending on how we look at the seal. So, we have to understand a little bit about Egyptian cosmology and the main solar god, the solar disk, which we looked at as Horus, as Ra, and Set is the dark incarnation of it. Really, all of these principles could be encapsulated as one solar god known as Aten, or Aton. Depending on the spelling, it could be spelled A-T-O-N or A-T-E-N. So, Akhenaten of 18th dynasty Egypt was actually named after this. He's a pharaoh of 18th dynasty. He brought in the concept into Egyptian cosmology of a one God that is the overarching ruling aspect of everything, known as the Aten, and he named himself after this god. Akhenaten means the spirit of the Aten, the solar god. So that is the being here, the Aten. Now that could mean a couple of things depending on how we look at this symbol, but let's just let it be seen as it is the solar principle, the solar god, the god of light, the bringer of light. So it could be also seen as the word Lucifer. Lucifer comes from two Latin words, lux meaning light, and fere meaning to bear or to bring or to carry. So it is the bringer, the carrier of light.
In Revelation chapter 13, verse 18, it says, "Here is wisdom. Let him that hath the understanding count the number of the beast. For it is the number of a man, and his number is 666."
this hand sign's origin is much more ancient than Hollywood. In fact, it dates all the way back to the days of Nimrod, who was the great-grandson of Noah and the son of Cush. Whether this hand sign is being flashed within Hollywood, or as an alt-right follower, or in meditation, you need to understand that it brings with it the spirit of the Antichrist. Before I trace back its lineage, let me show you an example of how the Antichrist spirit binds itself to this innocent yet purposeful use of the hand sign. I was following a small-time alt-right Canadian reporter known as Faith Goldie. You can see from her Instagram account she is prominently flashing the hand sign and has several other pictures like it. One of her shared photos originated from a Facebook user named Valen. As his profile was public, I decided just to see what he was into. Sure enough, his profile pic was the hand sign as well. It turns out that him and his friends are LGBT and met Faith Goldie at one of Milo Yiannopoulos' private events. And again, you can see them all there with Milo flashing the hand sign. So are they all quote-unquote Illuminati with direction coming from their sponsors? Personally, I would say no, absolutely not. After combing through their public discussions, Faith Goldie, Valen, and his friends appeared to be using the sign only for the purpose of showing their affiliation to alternative right supporters. However, this is a big however. I mentioned that the Antichrist spirit still binds itself or attaches itself to even the most innocent yet purposeful use of this hand sign. After combing through some of Valen's photos, you have him here with an upside-down cross necklace and a t-shirt with the all-seeing eye and horns of Baphomet. And yet in another photograph, he has the all-seeing eye pyramid. Now, where did this hand sign truly originate, and why does it carry with it the Antichrist spirit? I'm not sure if you noticed, but in yoga meditation, they also have the hand sign, although it is turned upside down. This originates from Buddhism and is called the Vitarka Mudra, or Dharma wheel. This article here states that the Dharma wheel is presented in a kind of tableau, that is, a group of models representing an event from history, supported on a lotus flower pedestal with 2 deer, a buck, and a doe on either side. How interesting it is that I just covered the occult and Luciferian symbol of the lotus all throughout Buddhism and ancient Egypt in my last video, and honestly had no intention of linking it with this video. The lotus is found all throughout so many popular yoga organizations and spiritual meditations, but we'll get on to that some other time. Back to the meaning of the Dharma wheel, or the Vitarka Mudra. It is symbolizing the transmission of knowledge or illumination, much like the symbol of the birth of a lotus flower. Another article from Yogapedia actually says that the Vitarka Mudra is a mark or seal. And that, my friends, is some pretty scary language, as we all know what it means to be marked or sealed by something. Now, if we start to look up variation naming conventions of the Dharma wheel or Vitarka Mudra, we will find that it is called the Wheel of Law, and that is an 8-spoked sun wheel shown here. Where have we seen this before? Well, for starters, keeping in line with its sun worship theme, it is at the Vatican, where the Vatican's obelisk shadow rotates around St. Peter's Basilica Square much like a big sundial. But let's trace its origins back even further. It dates all the way back to the Babylonian sun wheel affiliated with Nimrod worship. Now, folks, this isn't just the, quote, 666 or the alt-right hand sign or the meditation sign or the white power sign. These are all just modern-day adaptations of a very ancient and God-defying hand gesture. Again, as I've mentioned, dating all the way back to Nimrod, who was the great-grandson of Noah, the son of Cush. As I've said on my channel time and time again, the ancient world is resurfacing. Only those who have eyes to see and ears to hear can discern its legacy. I hope if you are new to this channel or the genre of this content, that you find the lineage of this hand symbol very strange and that it sparks your curiosity. It's just a small example of evidence of how there is more to this world than the physically apparent good and evil we see on a daily basis. It serves as evidence that there is indeed a very subtle and underlying spiritual war occurring, and that there is only one truth in this world, and it is salvation through Yeshua Jesus Christ. I hope that you seek him and ask him to help you understand all these things. This is Mike with On Point Preparedness. God bless.
So today we're going to talk about Baal. In this picture here is the Arch of Baal that they actually, a copy that they actually erected in New York City. One of the signs that shows you that this country is involved deeply in Baal worship. But I was going to show you some other stuff too to kind of let you know who Baal was, and essentially the worship to Baal. So here we are in Jeremiah chapter 32. It says, "And they built high places of Baal, which are in the valley of the son of Hinnom, to cause their sons and daughters to pass through the fire of Molech, which I did not command them, nor did it come to my mind that they should do this abomination, to cause Judah to sin." Alright, so what we're seeing here is, this is one of the places in the Bible that ties Molech to Baal. So I'm going to deal with both of these. First off, Baal. Okay, so here we have the British Dictionary, and for Baal. And so we see that it was fertility god, the sun god, supreme national deity, any other false god or idol. And the word origin comes from the Hebrew for Lord or Master. So when you see that they've changed in the Bible to say Lord instead of one of God's names or titles, that's why they did it, because it's just a sign of actual Baal worship. For example, Exodus 32, we've got the story of the golden calf, and this is a symbol of Baal worship. And we know how the story went, so I'm not going to go too deeply into it, but, you know, they said, "This is your God, O Israel, that brought you out of the land of Egypt." And Aaron saw it, and he built an altar before it. Aaron made a proclamation, said, "Tomorrow is a feast of the Lord." So, a couple of things that he did here. Well, number one, we know Baal is embodied in a bull or a calf, cow, the symbols of Baal worship. He also proclaims a holiday that God did not tell him to do. Then we know that this didn't go over very well. But also here we are again. Lord, this could easily be rendered, tomorrow is a feast to Baal. Simply by going to Exodus 32 here and taking a look, and we have feast to the Lord, Jehovah. So they've actually replaced the name of Jehovah and put in Lord, or Baal if you like. Deuteronomy chapter 12, "These are the statutes and judgments which you shall be careful to observe in the land which the Lord God of your fathers is giving to you, giving you to possess all the days that you live on the earth. You shall utterly destroy all the places where the nations which you shall dispossess served their gods. On the high mountains and on the hills and under every green tree you shall destroy their altars, break their sacred pillars, and burn down their wooden images with fire. You shall cut down the carved images of their gods and destroy their names from that place. You shall not worship the Lord your God with such things." So right here God is telling you, however the heathen, pagans worship their God, you don't worship me the same way that they worship their gods. I won't accept it. Once you get in there, don't go in there and say, "Well, this is a nice altar. We'll just scrape, Baal's name off of it and, put Jehovah on there and we're good," right? He's telling you, don't even do that. Just tear them all down. But also, we'll just go ahead and take a look at this right here. Lord your God. We'll break that down. We see here that Lord, Baal, is replaced Jehovah. And then God is Elohim. And they've done this a lot of times. They've replaced. So really, when you get into the paganism of, say, God, you know, I'll use the term very generically because it's what people understand. You know, you have to meet people where they are to explain things to them. And so, you know, this is where we study the Word. We start to find out that this is what these words mean. You know, and it's also the same thing where you see people actually go G-D because the name is so holy that you shouldn't pronounce it. No, this is the enemy's way of getting in there, trying to get you to not say his name. He doesn't have a problem with Allah or any of the other pagan names, but this is the name that he has a problem with. And that's why they've removed it from the Word of God. Even the perfect King James Bible, 6,000 times, God's name has been removed. Or one of his titles, Elohim, Jehovah, Adonai. Then they'll just put Lord in its place. Just simple Lord. Or Baal, if you like. Alright, so let's head back over to Jeremiah chapter 32, where we started, and notice what they did. They caused their sons and their daughters to pass through the fire of Molech. Okay, so here's a rendering of Molech, and what they would do is they had this metal statue, and they would have usually the fire was in the belly, but they would get a fire going, and then they would take their children and they would put it on the hands, and the children would burn up and scream, and it was not, they had down there you see the drummers beating so that you wouldn't hear the screams of the children, and of course the parents as well, but this was how Molech or Baal wanted to be worshipped. You had to sacrifice your children. And even today, we're seeing some of that same stuff go on. The fight has never been harder to keep abortion laws intact, because it is the abortion laws deal with child sacrifice. It may be a little bit more sterile. They may not be saying, hey, you're worshiping Baal, and it doesn't matter as long as you're doing the act. You know, it's looking at some of these holidays where we just put a veneer of Jesus on it. It goes back to what are they actually doing. And this is one reason that when you look at child sacrifice and you study the occult, you find that there are women that work for abortion clinics that are witches, and they'll go and have an abortion, get pregnant and have an abortion once a year, just to serve their God, essentially. Actually, when I was looking around for some of that stuff, I saw this, and I thought, that's very fitting. It's exactly what's going on. It's just we just don't make it seem so religious in nature. It's just really, it's a procedure. And you think about, why do women have abortions? And it's because it's an unwanted pregnancy. It costs money, and so they feel like that if they get rid of the child, then they'll have more wealth in the future. So it all comes down to money as well. When you look at Baal worship, you see the embodiment of the bull. This is on Wall Street. It's why they call it bull market. Is a market that people want to get invested in because they want to make money. And so the price of something is going up, and they want to get in while things are moving forward. And so you have a bull market. And going back to the calf, the bull, these are all symbols of Baal. And we're going to take a look at the corrupt church, Revelation chapter 2. This is, if you haven't seen my video on the 7 churches, I go into much more detail, but we see here that Jezebel was the one in Elijah's day that brought Baal worship into Israel, Baal and Ashtaroth. And so we have this church here, most likely the Catholic Church, according to my theory, which I think holds a lot of credibility. But we see, he says, I have these things, nevertheless, I have a few things against you, because you allow that woman Jezebel, calls herself a prophetess, and to teach and seduce my servants to commit sexual immorality and eat things sacrificed to idols. I gave her time to repent of her sexual immorality, and she would not. Indeed, I'll cast her into a sick bed, and those who commit adultery with her into great tribulation. This is first mention of the great tribulation, as it were. Unless they repent of their deeds, I will kill her children with death. Why kill her children with death? Because she killed under the idea of Baal worship and Molech. They would kill their children for prosperity reasons. And so God is returning the favor upon Jezebel. And so this church here, being the Catholic Church, brought in Baal worship.
Listen, I am a happy member of the Bohemian Grove. I like the folks who come there, and it's really inappropriate for me to talk about the group beyond that. Thank you.
Have you been there for the ceremony with the cremation of care?
Frankly, I don't think that's something I need to talk to you about. This is what's called ambush journalism, and I disrespect you for that as well. So thank you and goodbye.
Been in the ritual?
It's none of your damn business.
Every year in mid-July, a few hundred men gather together for a celebration on a 2,700-acre private campground in Monte Rio, California. Some call it a cult meeting, but not just any cult meeting. This is a gathering of the world's most elite and powerful men, including senior media executives, prominent CEOs, and even retired presidents. This is the Bohemian Grove. The Bohemian Club, formed in 1872, started out as a San Francisco-based men's art club, with Bohemianism being the practice of an unconventional lifestyle. While the club started out as a group of artists and musicians, it was gradually overrun by more prominent individuals, and eventually became a group of the world's most powerful figures. Today, the club has around 3,200 members, dead and alive, notably Bill Clinton, the Bush family, and Herbert Hoover, who once referred to it as the greatest party on earth. The club motto is "Weaving spiders come not here," implying that business concerns and networking are to be left outside, but the truth in this slogan is greatly debated. The Grove is famous for a 1942 meeting during which the planning for the Manhattan Project took place. J. Robert Oppenheimer, nuclear scientist Ernest Lawrence, and various military officials gathered together at the Grove for a meeting that led to the creation and eventual use of the atomic bomb. Grove members take pride in this historic event and often retell the story to new attendees. But in the decades following this renowned meeting, the Bohemian Grove has been pinned with a far more devious reputation. Believers in the Illuminati, a world elite group that dictates global events and affairs, often cite the Bohemian Grove as evidence. While seemingly outlandish, such a claim definitely holds some merit. Take this photo from 1967, for example. Recognize these two gentlemen? That's Ronald Reagan and Richard Nixon, years before either man became president. Accordingly, many people believe the Grove is utilized to set up world policies, such as whom will become the next US president. But conspiracy theories aside, what exactly goes on during the annual 17-day gathering at the Bohemian Grove? Well, that's just the question. Today, the Grove is an incredibly secretive place that is heavily guarded by security. During each retreat, the area is sealed off by helicopters, a private security force, and armed guards, making it clear that outsiders are strictly not welcome. Nonetheless, truth seekers have gotten in before. In the year 2000, conservative radio show host Alex Jones managed to sneak into the Grove during his summer party. And the footage he captured is nothing short of bizarre, and perhaps even sinister.
9/11, which would pursue us here, has lost its power under these friendly trees. So shall we burn thee once again this night, and in the flames that eat thine effigy, we shall read the sign, Midsummer sets us free. Ye shall burn me once again. Not with these flames, which hither ye
unsettling footage apparently depicts the cremation of care, just one of the many alleged bizarre rituals performed by the club. During the ceremony, members dress up in red robes and cremate a coffin containing a human effigy made out of paper mache. The ritual is performed in front of the mascot of the grove, a giant owl statue. While said to merely personify wisdom, the symbol of the owl has often been described as a prominent symbol of the aforementioned Illuminati. While theories can only run rampant in regards to what else goes on at this mysterious retreat, one thing's for certain: members of the club remain very secretive about it. When inquired about the Bohemian Grove, numerous politicians have acted uncharacteristically sketchy in response.
The place you attended, it's a secret society. Can you tell us at least who invited you?
You know, it's nice to know that there's some people who have fantasy lives that have nothing to touch with. Nice to have you here. Bye-bye.
You can't answer the question? You can't? Can you answer the question? See you later.
The Bohemian Club, as you say, the Bohemian Club, that's where all those rich Republicans go up and stand naked against redwood trees, right? I've never been to the Bohemian Club, but you ought to go. It'd be good for you. Get some fresh air.
Yes, sir. First question? Yeah. I'm sorry. You gave a keynote speech at the Bohemian Grove Club, sir. A club which openly has mock child sacrifices and satanic worship, sir. Can you answer my question, sir? Please.
I was very pleased. I was very pleased with my performance in the debate. It was a good debate.
What about the Bohemian Grove Club, though, sir? That's very important. They do mock human sacrifices there, sir, and you reported being there.
I was very pleased with my performance in the debate.
Sir, why did you ignore my question, sir? Can we have open dialogue? If you want to be president, let's have an open dialogue about this. You just ignored me, sir.
Sweating up a storm about that Bohemian Grove over there. Human sacrifices, a male prostitute shipped in there yearly. I should like to know what goes on over there.
Whether you believe it is merely the location of the most upper-class getaway in America, or if something otherwise far more sinister is occurring within its borders, the Bohemian Grove remains one of the most forbidden and mysterious places in the civilized world.
And that eye, of course, is the sun. And this eye represents the son of the underworld. This symbol in the Egyptian was a ball of light surrounded by radiant rays. Therefore, the sun was radiating in all directions, lifting up everything that came in contact with, bringing death to life out of the earth. That part of the world where the sun was above the horizon was the good part, the life part. Night was the dark part. Night was darkness, mystery, and death. Day was light, brightness, and wisdom.
And now we come to the fourth month. You notice the name of the fourth month. Can anyone pronounce that for me? Tammuz. Tammuz. Right on the biblical Hebrew calendar, we have the month of Tammuz. That's what it is on the Jewish calendar. Does anyone know anything about Tammuz? We read about Tammuz in Ezekiel 8. It talks about the the women weeping for Tammuz. Now, what is this women weeping for Tammuz? What do we have going on here? We have to just step back a little bit and find out who Tammuz's mother was. Because his mother was married to Nimrod. Nimrod, the builder of the Tower of Babel, that's his fame. He died and he ascended up into heaven and became the sun, or the sun god. Now, many, many months later, after his death and then ascension, and he became the sun god, then his widow, Semiramis, became pregnant, and the story was she became pregnant by the rays of the sun, her husband who ascended into heaven. Now, I don't know too many people who nowadays would believe that story, especially if your daughter tried to tell it to you. But this was the story, that she became pregnant with the rays of the sun. Now, she gave birth to Tammuz on December 25th. That is the birthday of the Babylonian sun god, December 25th. And I think it's important probably to point out, see, we went into captivity in Babylon. We were involved in the worship of Tammuz. We know his birthday was December 25th. We came out of Egypt. We know that the Egyptian sun god Ra was born on December 25th. The Romans hung us on the cross, which was the sign of the Roman sun god Mithra, who was born on December 25th. They sacrificed Jews to their sun god Mithra, born on December 25th. And Antiochus Epiphanes came into Jerusalem, slaughtered a pig on the altar in 168 BC, and set up a statue of Zeus, the Greek sun god, on December 25th, his birthday. Now there's one day I will guarantee you that Jesus of Nazareth was not born. It's December 25th. That's why if Western Gentile Christians attempt to try to witness to Jews and they have Jesus dressed up in a bunch of pagan sun god garments, then don't blame them if they don't believe it, because you've got them dressed up looking like a pagan sun god. They're not supposed to be worshiping pagan sun gods, and don't dress Jesus up like that. He was born on Tishri 15, and if you can't celebrate his birthday on the right date, then don't celebrate any pagan sun god's birthday.
But Sirius was also associated with the Egyptian goddess Isis. And here, as we connect the dots, a more complete picture begins to emerge. For the Egyptians, the rising of Sirius in the east preceded the annual flooding of the Nile River, which for them was a magical event. It was also the time that the goddess Isis would appear and give birth to Horus, the divine child of the Egyptian Trinity. The all-seeing eye is also called the Eye of Horus, and in Freemasonry, Horus symbolizes the Masonic concept of a Christ. This is further represented by the hieroglyph used to denote Sirius. Notice the three symbols, an obelisk, a star, and a half circle. According to Egyptologists, the half circle is used to denote what is called the benben, or the capstone used atop the pyramids. Throughout all history, it has been said that the capstone to the Great Pyramid of Egypt has been missing, which is why the all-seeing Eye of Horus floats in its place above the pyramid on the back of the dollar bill. According to occult philosophers, the light which illuminates the eye comes not from the sun, but from the dog star Sirius, as is demonstrated by this illustration of the blazing star of Masonry, centered by an all-seeing eye. As Robert Balville writes, in many esoteric traditions, the return of the capstone of the Great Pyramid will signal the return of the Great Initiate, which, according to many prophecies, signifies the return of the Christ. Albert Pike describes the Masonic Trinity as expressed through Sirius and the symbols that are seen in most all Masonic halls. Notice this image with the sun on one side and the moon on the other, while the all-seeing eye sits in between with light blazing behind it. Pike writes that the sun and moon represent the two grand principles, the male and the female. Both shed their light upon their offspring, the blazing star, or Horus.
Do Freemasons worship Lucifer? Let's find out. I have some quotes here from Albert Pike. He was the author of Morals and Dogmas. He was a high-ranking Freemason, and I have a couple of quotes from Albert Pike that I would like to read you, and I'm going to end this video with a video with a Freemason / Shriner being interviewed himself, and he speaks about Lucifer very openly and how a Freemason views Lucifer. But let me show you a picture here of Albert Pike. Again, he was a high-ranking Freemason and the author of Morals and Dogmas. Here he is here, and I'm going to read you this quote that he makes about Lucifer. Freemasonry does elevate Lucifer and worship Lucifer, and I'm going to prove this to you from this video. Quoting Albert Pike here, he says, yes, Lucifer is God, and unfortunately Adonai is also God. For the eternal law is that there is no light without shade, no beauty without ugliness, no white without black, for the absolute can only exist as two gods. Darkness being necessary for light to serve as its foil, as the pedestal is necessary to the statue, and the brake to the locomotive. Thus the doctrine of Satanism is heresy, and the true and pure philosophical religion is the belief in Lucifer, the equal of Adonai. So So see, they believe that Lucifer and Satan are two different beings. And of course we know as Bible-believing Christians this isn't true. Lucifer is indeed Satan. But he's saying here, the true and pure philosophical religion is the belief in Lucifer. And he's saying here he is the equal of Adonai. But Lucifer, God of light and God of good, is struggling for humanity against Adonai, the God of darkness and evil. So according to Albert Pike, he's saying Lucifer has the true doctrine of light, that he's the equal of God the Father, which is Adonai, and that he is the God of good, and that Satan or Lucifer is fighting for humanity against Adonai, the God of darkness and evil. So according to Freemasonry, again, this is from Albert Pike, and you can look this up yourself. This is from Albert Pike, from Morals and Dogmas, and here he is saying that Lucifer is the one who's good, who's fighting for humanity to free us from the one true God, who is Adonai, Jehovah, the Father. And he's saying that that Adonai, our Father in heaven, is the God of darkness and evil, and Lucifer is struggling to free humanity from him. I have another quote here from Albert Pike. I'm going to show you here. I can find it. Thank you for bearing with me. Okay, this is from Albert Pike as well. The apocalypse is to those who receive the 19th degree, the apotheosis. Okay, apotheosis means man rising to be God, or the transition or ascension of man into godhood. To those who receive the 19th degree, the apotheosis of that sublime faith which aspires to God alone, that despises all the pomps and works of Lucifer. Lucifer the light bearer, strange and mysterious name to give to the spirit of darkness. Lucifer, the son of the morning, it is he who bears the light. And with its splendors intolerable, blinds feeble, for traditions are full of sensual or selfish souls, doubt it not. So in other words, he's saying here that Lucifer, the light bearer, strange and mysterious name to give to the spirit of darkness. Lucifer, the son of the morning, it is he who bears the light. So in one breath, he's saying that he acknowledges that faith should be aspired to God alone, and saying that he knows Lucifer is the spirit of darkness, but yet in Morals and Dogmas he claims to worship Lucifer and say that Lucifer is the one fighting for mankind to release them from Adonai's evil. And isn't this the same lie he told Adam and Eve in the garden when he said, you know, God's holding out on you. He knows that if you eat of the knowledge of the tree of good and evil, that you become as gods. In other words, trying to defame the Lord in their eyes as if he's holding back or somehow mistreating them. But I want to play a video for you of a Freemason that's about ready to enter into a lodge, and he's being questioned by a Christian who's interviewing him about Lucifer, and I'll let the video speak for itself. Albert Pike's quotes about Lucifer. Look up some of his information in Morals and Dogmas. So if you're doubting whether or not Freemasonry has Lucifer as their god, doubt it no more.
What is your problem?
Just that, sir.
Okay.
I'm a Christian, sir.
I'm pure and virtuous and wholesome and innocent. How can you say anything bad about me?
Sir, you need to be born again.
I am born again.
Now, did you just say that you are Lucifer?
I am Lucifer.
Okay, define Lucifer for me.
Pure, virtuous, wholesome, innocent individual that's out to help people.
Lucifer is?
Yeah.
Say that again. Lucifer is a pure, holy...
Virtuous.
Virtuous. Now, is he the Lucifer that God created?
That's the same one.
Oh, man, this is great. I'm going to put this on the internet.
Oh, God bless you, brother.
Because that's exactly what the Shriners and Masons teach, is that Lucifer is light.
No.
And
what about those hospitals?
You know what, sir? Jesus said, many will say to me on that day, Lord, Lord, we did not do these good deeds in your name. And you'll say, away from me, you workers of iniquity. I never knew you.
Jesus said it?
In Matthew chapter 5.
Mercy.
No.
That's hard to believe.
So you're a Christian and you don't know that. Actually,
no, I really am.
You are.
Because I'm pure and virtuous.
You're pure and virtuous, okay. Yeah. In other words, you're perfect without Jesus, right?
No.
Okay, tell me about Jesus. Who is Jesus?
Well, He's my leader.
Is he the Son of God?
Yes, he is.
Is he the only worshipful master?
Yes.
Have you ever been called worshipful master?
No, because I've just been too busy. I've been working to help people.
What
like
kind
you.
of work?
Get out of here.
See, this is what a Mason confesses, is that Lucifer is light. You heard it? Okay. So, there again, you heard quotes from Albert Pike himself. I'll read that to you again if I can bring that up. Stating that Lucifer is God as well as Adonai being God. So they believe that there's a duality. See, in the occult, Freemasonry and in the occult, they're very heavily into the duality. But like Isaiah said, they exchange light for darkness and darkness for light. Woe to them who call evil good and good evil. Well, Satan has come into this world, blinding the minds of those who do not believe, telling them that, Adonai, who is God our Father in heaven, is the evil one. I'll quote again. Albert Pike. Yes, Lucifer is God, and unfortunately Adonai is also God, for the eternal law is that there is no light without shade, no beauty without ugliness, and on. He goes on about the duality of things. Let me see. The true and pure philosophical religion is the belief in Lucifer, the equal of Adonai. But Lucifer, God of light and God of good, is struggling for humanity against Adonai, the God of darkness and evil.
At the beginning of this video, I said that I would not only show you why the world has gotten so evil, but who is responsible. The why is because of the times that we're in. It's predicted all through the Bible that in the end times that there would be a falling away from faith, because iniquity would abound, the love of many would wax cold. Earthquakes, famine, pestilence, wars, rumors of wars, distress of nations, seas roaring, and the who is, yep, you guessed it, the devil. The devil knows he has but a short time to complete his work, so he is going to pull all the stops. The devil covets worship. He promises riches to those who are prepared to give him worship and relinquish their souls. All these symbols are just many ways to pay homage to Satan. The devil wants worship because he wants to be God. The devil is not worthy of worship or praise of any kind. Any religion that is less than the devil is devil worship. There are many other gods too, like the god of convenience, the god of money. The Bible calls it mammon. Idols of all different kinds, singers, movie stars, football players, basketball players. There are so many idols in the world that people worship and don't even realize that they're worshiping them. You don't have to sit in a church and pray to worship someone. When you dedicate all your time and attention and focus on a person because they have some ability or talent or charisma that you don't have, it's a form of worship, and it's also a form of devil worship. An abortion is sacrificing your children to pagan gods, to the god of convenience, Molech or Baal, because you just don't feel like you're ready to raise a child, or it won't fit into your wild and crazy lifestyle. It's murder, and it is definitely sacrificing your child to the devil. Remember, there's salvation through Jesus Christ. Accept him today before it's too late. That's about it. Please like and subscribe. And join me again next week for another episode of The Cataclysm. Have a great week.